The viewpoints expressed on Night Fright are not necessarily those of the host, the staff, the sponsors, or the affiliate stations. Tonight's program may contain graphic themes or images. Viewer discretion is advised.
There is a time for question. There is a time for answers. There is a time to challenge. There is a time to speculate. There is a time for change. There is a time for truth. The time is now. Welcome to Night Fright, your voice in the dark for paranormal and conspiracy. And now your host, Brent Holland.
Showtime. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Night Fright, everybody. I'm your host, Brent Holland. I'm struggling tonight because I've had pneumonia for the past 10 days and I'm still getting over it. So bear with me if my throat seems to sound like it's going through puberty a little bit. And I remember those days not so fondly, to be honest with you. Anyways, we have a great guest for you tonight. I want you all to settle in because it's cool out there tonight. You know, the wind's blowing. As always, it's a great evening to kick back, settle in, get in your comfy chair. If you want, get your comforter right up around with you because we're going to go to the paranormal tonight. Oh yeah, baby, that's right. And we're going to go down to the Maritimes in Canada to do it with our guest Rosalind Hennigar. Get the coffee going, get that tea going, or a beverage of your choice going. My beverage of choice tonight, folks, is water, as always. I'm going to have some right now. Excuse my voice. There we go. Thank you. Rosalind Hennigar is Canada's renowned paranormal occult research writer and designer who founded back in 2011 a wonderful online magazine called The Paranormal View. And that covers all aspects of the paranormal and occult. She's also, are you ready for this, an author of 9 fictional novels, which include Black Silence, Encrypted Tomb, and Eternal Blade. She also holds, writing-wise, 8 works of non-fiction books, her most recent being The Slender Man Phenomenon, Unsolved Paranormal Mystery, and another book called Restoring Universal Balance Team Manual. We're going to get to a lot more of her work tonight and find out what's going on in the Maritimes, why it's so spooky down there, and what inspires her to write in the paranormal realm. But first of all, I want to welcome Rosalind Hennigar to the show for the very first time, and most certainly not the last time. Welcome to the show, Rosalind.
Thank you.
How you doing tonight from the Maritimes?
Oh, really good, actually, aside from the weather. It can't decide whether it wants to snow or it wants to be like sunshine, but it's definitely cold.
Have you got the coffee going or the tea going?
Oh, I had it going earlier. I kind of coffeeed myself out, so. But that's coffee and writers kind of go hand in hand, so.
I hear you. Now, Rosalind, you had contacted me originally because you had listened to one of our shows from the archives with J.M. Dixon. J.M. Dixon, folks, www.nightfrightshow.com. All the archives are there. Just check out our YouTube channel. It's probably even easier. Just Google Night Fright Show, Brent Holland, and J.M. Dixon Vampires. He came on the show and he kind of startled me a little bit because he told me he was a real-life vampire. And this is also something that has intrigued you. And let me read this direct quote from Rosalind. I think we are all vampires. Only some of us are more awakened to our abilities than others. Mm-hmm. And those that are not awakened need to be brought up to some conclusion. This is mystifying. Does this mean every single person on Earth has the potential to be a quote-unquote vampire?
Yes. So yes, because...
please, go ahead.
If you think about it, I mean, we all feed words and thoughts are energy. And we exchange words Of course, those words are thoughts, and we all feed off of it. So that's basically, we're feeding off of each other's energy. Some vampires a lot of them do it subconsciously, and those are the ones that are not quite aware that they are what they are, where they kind of say that they go to bed thinking of somebody or whatever, then they subconsciously kind of go in and they feed, depending on how strong they're thinking about that person.
We have to define feed, because right away when I think of vampires, of course, I'm thinking Bela Lugosi or some of the old Hammer films, and when they had to feed, they'd go bite people on necks and
take blood. Yeah. I'm more or less referring to psychic vamps that feed off of energy.
Okay. Now, Is this life form energy, or is this a different type? Is this an energy that we can share, in other words, like it's not going to affect our health, our well-being, or anything like that, that we are...
It shouldn't. I mean, if a vampire is taking more than they should, I guess, it can affect you, depending on how sensitive you are, I guess, to energies. Some people are unaware of it, so it doesn't really affect them, but other people are aware of it. And when they become aware of it, if the vampire is taking, I call them, okay, I'm kind of quote Michelle Belanger here, because I read a lot of her work on the vampire. There's vampires that are aware of what they're doing, and then there's universal pains in the butts. And those are people that, like, they take more than they should, and that can wear the person down.
So, once again, does the vampire have to have a symbiotic relationship with the person they're taking the energy from? Or can they just do it without that person's knowledge? In other words, does there have to be some kind of permission given to the vampire?
I say there's pretty much got to be like some kind of a link. It could be somebody you know, or somebody you even worked with, or maybe even exchanged like words with. And a lot of them that are aware of what they are doing, we'll call them the skilled ones. They can take like a picture of you. They could take something, a quote that you had said, and they could actually like zoom in on you and feed off of your life force.
So that, quite a bit of that sounds like voodoo almost. You know, when they take a piece of your clothing and they make a doll, and then they can invoke prayers, or if you will, or invoke spells upon that person. Is there a difference between the two in your mind?
Not really. Voodoo and vampire, it's all vampirism either way. If you're using magic to take from somebody or to gain something from somebody, then it's vampirism.
Okay. Now,
if you're using magic to protect somebody or to bless somebody or to restore their health, that's wicked. That's white. Okay. There's no vampirism involved.
Is it dangerous for people for the novice, for example, to perhaps go down that road, to explore being a vampire? Is it dangerous for them because they may open up something that they don't want to?
I believe so. I mean, if a vampire is amongst other vampires, or somebody who knows about vampirism, and they're kind of like, I'll call it a coven, I suppose, where, you know, somebody within that is willing to be a participant in the feeding, that's one thing. But if you got a vampire who's taking from like somebody who's not willing, or outside of, you know, the particular circle, then yeah, it's dangerous, because it opens up, like, when they feed, they're pretty much they're entwining their life force with your own. So you be picking them up and they be picking you up. So like whatever comes your way is going their way, and whatever's going their way is coming your way.
You must be clairvoyant, because that's what I was going to ask you. Coming back to that symbiotic relationship, not only can that energy be taken from you, but can they deliver some energy back to you if you're in need of that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Like, how can I put it? When Michelle kind of defined the universal pain in the butt to the vampire, she kind of pointed out that a vampire who knows, I guess, how did she put it? That knows their range of feeding. will do an exchange with the feeding partner for which they will give them something in return from taking. But a universal pain in the butt will only take and won't give you back. So it pretty much wears that person. It's almost like, in a way, kind of possession. It would be almost the same thing, because even negative entities such as demonics were known as vampires, because they would feed off of the life force of the victim and not give anything back in return, therefore wearing the victim down until they could take a host over the body.
Is there any defense that a person could do if they know that perhaps a demon is sucking their energy out of them, for example? We'll use that example. I think it's a very good example, by the way. Is there anything a person can do to block that?
Oh, yes. There's many methods within.
What are some of the options?
There's what's called a severance of the link. It's where you kind of subconsciously kind of go in and you can do it, I guess, in visualization, where you kind of picture, like you see the life force, or the link, they call it, between the two life forces, and you cut it. There's other methods where it involves, you can make blessed water and you can sprinkle it around your bed, put it on yourself. There's sleeping charms that you can take to bed with you, because most of the time it's done in dream state, where they'll enter subconsciously. Even a demonic will enter subconsciously. Like, they'll come in and they'll wear you down from the inside. So there's charms that you can make, that you can take to bed. There's even, I even had, for some of my clients, and this comes out of the Restoring the Balance manual, I had to do this, like, I would get them to do it, but I did it first just to show them. It's a ritual with a mirror that you kind of stand on the bed and it takes away nightmares, because that's what these forces do, is they turn even like a simple as like really desirable dream into a nightmare. So you take the mirror and you go around like 3 times on the bed, and but you don't go reverse. You have to go clockwise, and it reverses. The mirror becomes a portal that kind of sucks the negative energy in and seals it in. So there's like an incantation that goes to the mirror that you say as you're turning. So I added quite a few of these to, I'm really hoping that the manual will go out amongst the groups, because I feel, and I've always, since I began my studies in the occult, which was, well, about 21 years ago, to be honest with you, I've been in it for a while. And, what I've learned is that you should never ever summon anything unless you can banish it. And you should never ever go up against anything unless you can banish it.
Yeah, I'm just curious, coming back to the essence of life, and that essence primarily for human beings is blood, of course, as well. Is this where that ritual came from, or perhaps it's a myth that vampires suck blood?
No. I was in a few underground when I was, kind of getting into my studies, and I went into some underground internet chat rooms, places people wouldn't dare to go in. And if you did dare to go in, you would have to be, really under cloak of who you are, because you wouldn't want one of these targeting you. There was all kinds of rituals that they would do. I guess they would exchange, like, if we had 2 vampires that were feeding partners, they would actually bloodlet each other, and they would carry the blood around in a vial around their necks.
When you say bloodlet, what is the process in doing that? Is that just a mere finger prick, like when you go for a blood test?
I think it mainly depends upon the vampires and how they kind of wish to do it. Some do it ritualistically, where they just kind of slice each other open and kind of, take the blood. And then you got ones that are more kind of, how can I put it, hygienic about it, where they will get it done professionally because, they don't want the blood tainted or... So I think it depends upon the vampires, to be honest with you. A lot of them I ran into were not very hygienic about it, so to speak. Yeah, they were colors, I guess, and that was one thing amongst the youth running around was, cutting and stuff like that. And come to find out that a lot of it was ritualistic, where we had like a cult of vampires or a group of vampires of young ones that would, cut themselves, and they would cup their blood or give it to somebody. Or
What was I understand the attraction that you had. You were doing sincere research, there's no question. What did you find was the attraction for the younger people to be attracted to this type of lifestyle?
I think mainly it was like media's hoopla, Dracula and the charming of it. And to me, that may not be the reason. You would have to, I guess, track one down and really ask them. But to me, it was the media. It was the hoopla. I mean, really, I was drawn in by Dracula. I thought it was oh so charming, and and a great movie. And you want to get bit by that vampire, until I started researching it, and I was like, no, no. Now we want to guard ourselves against it. But yeah, I think the media had a lot to do with it. I do.
You had mentioned that it's been 21 years, so you started more than likely your paranormal career when you were 1 or 2 years old. And
well, probably about 14 or 15. I'm 42.
Okay.
So yeah. Why do I look that young? I'm 42. My paranormal studies, I was pretty much, I tell people this, I was born into the realm of the paranormal. What happened to my family, was not by chance. It was destined to happen. We could not avoid it no matter how hard we tried. My grandmother was, she was Irish, and there was pagan in the family. And my grandmother always talked to the family about the gift. Now, that's what they used to call spiritual abilities back then, was the gift. Of course, I never understood it. My mother always shunned it. I think she was afraid for that truth to get out. But then when to kind of explain it, my mother was, we were anchored in God. We weren't heavy churchgoers, but my mom had us baptized. We were Christian baptized, and my stepfather actually went for being a faith healer when he retired. So there was always the Bible preached in our home, but my family was also spiritual. Like, nothing was of coincidence. It didn't happen out of coincidence. Things happened for reasons. God worked in mysterious ways. Yes, the devil did exist, like stuff like that. But my mother was the type of person that she helped youth that was out of control. And she used to take like a young girl or boy into the house that had no given chance by society to make it. And she would turn them around and actually, put them back out successful. Well, we had one successful girl that left our presence, and my mom thought, even though she was going to give it up, she thought she could do it one more time. So we ended up bringing this young girl into our home. She was 16, and my mom worked by authorities. So like there was always case files or, something. This girl's files were all sealed. We could not open her files. Medically, psychiatrically, we could not get our hands on them. And even though a lot of people would take that as a warning sign, you know what I mean? Like, something's not right, don't do this. My mother didn't see it that way. My mother saw it as, oh, well, she's human. She still needs our help. She'll adapt. So we brought this young 16-year-old girl in, and we knew nothing about her. Okay. At first she began to really, she was interactive with us. She would come to dinner. But then over time she began to withdraw. And with these withdrawals, there were strange things that were just not right that was going on. There was nights, my room used to be right next to hers. We lived in a fairly huge, it was my mother's dream house, actually. It had dining room, kitchen, living room, fireplace, and 5 bedrooms, 2 master bedrooms. And my room, okay, so my mom's master bedroom was at the end of the hall, and my bedroom was right next to this girl's bedroom, and I could literally hear her talking to, as if she was having a conversation with somebody in the room, but there was nobody in there. And this went on for like nights, and Mom never said nothing. I began to note changes, though, because my mom never ever slept with a cross above her bed. And then she started to. So, like, whether my mom was noting things, like, the family never really, like, I go to my mom and I tell her, something's just not right. I wouldn't sleep in my bed. I was afraid. You know what I mean? Then one night, this girl just completely flipped her lid. Like, she started screaming, and I mean screaming, like, that there was blood, like, all over her, all over, like, the bed. Like, there was nothing there. And the only way that my mom could get her to calm down was to put her through the process of, like, bathing her, changing the clothes, changing the bed sheets. And then it just continued like this. She withdrew more and more. We would love to say drugs, we really would, but where did she go? She didn't go anywhere. She didn't go out of the house. She never left her room. When she came into the house, the antibiotics that she did have, my mom had on her. So there was no way she could access anything, so I couldn't say, okay, she was getting high, because she wasn't. Then one night, there was just me and my mom and my brother in the house. My stepfather worked coast guarding, so he was gone for like a month and home for a month, and he wasn't there. And my older brother was married and moved out. So there was just me and like my second older brother in the house. And he was downstairs. He always listened to music on his headset, so he never heard anything anyways. I was sleeping in Mom's room by this point because, like, I'm terrified, right? And we awoke one night to this girl literally, like, there was smashing of glass, there was screaming, there was, like, things being thrown at the wall. Like, it just sounded like a hurricane had hit the house. My mom said to me, she said, stay here. She ran down the hall. I, of course, jumped out of the bed, like, I was terrified. I didn't want to be alone, but I didn't want to be down the hall either. When I jumped out of the bed, I heard a man's voice, like a guttural, deep voice that said, and, pardon my language, you're on the radio, but I'll say what it said. Shut up, bitch, you're mine. And it was a deep, guttural voice, and there's no man in the room with me. And I ran down the hall, and here's my mom trying to get into the door to get at her. She had the door locked, and Mom couldn't get in. So she's yelling at me, go down and get your brother. Now, my brother is like, he was 300 pounds of muscle, not fat. He worked for the town, so he did a lot of, heavy lifting. Once I took the headsets off his head, then he realized, there's commotion. He zips past me up the stairs. He busts the door open. What we saw on the other side, it stuck with us for a very long time. She was just wild looking. It didn't even look like her. Like, her eyes were like right wild looking. She had literally pulled clumps of hair out of her head. She had put her fist through the mirror, which, cut her hands all up, and she had the blood smeared all over the walls. She was just frantic, like, completely, like, right off the wall. Anyway, my brother ran in and he grabbed to restrain her, to stop her from, like, hurting herself. And she threw him out of the room like he was a rag doll. So my mother, she had to call 911. The cops showed up. They had to put her in a straitjacket. They took her to, are you still there?
Yes, I am. We have a caller, that's why, but I want you to finish your story.
They took her to a center for youth for, like, suicidal drug addictions. She ended up hanging herself 3 weeks later.
Oh my God.
What we learned was that there was a paranormal incident in the room when she hung herself. So we weren't, my mom was, I mean, we were beyond a doubt that evil had walked into our house, and it was unavoidable.
What a story. Now, how does this affected you? Was this what started your quest to find out what was going on?
My family was very affected by it. My older brother, he was already born with a kidney disease, and the treatments he was taking were really, like, they were really good up until this happened, and after that he stopped responding to them, and he died. And my mother,
I'm so sorry.
She fell really so bad under, like, she was so grief stricken by it that we actually began to think she was starting to show signs of possession, because she wasn't herself. Like, she would be, that loving, kind mother one moment, and then she'd be this, just unreasonable the next. And it was really hard. My family looked for answers. And, everybody else shunned. At the time that I was growing up, you did not speak of the occult. You did not speak of hauntings. You did not speak of stuff like that, because then you were declared a witch or you were doing devil's work. So we never had internet back then. I was pretty much an outcast at school, especially when I brought a good friend of mine over. Once when the room was cleaned out, when they cleaned the room out, my mother, it was kind of noted amongst my brothers who helped clean it out that there was some demonic ritual books, that there was on the Ouija board.
Oh.
Yeah. So, we didn't know the full story on her, really, until I began to actually dream it. I started to have these nightmares where I was back in the situation, even though we weren't in the situation. My mom had gave up her dream house. My brother caught pictures of black mass, like a black shadows, going through the house. I would wake up screaming from nightmares. It just really played havoc with her family. So my mom gave up her dream house. She never even sold it before we moved. She just, we're leaving. You know what I mean? Done. We moved into an apartment, which wasn't very good. It was like a slum, that's all I'll call it. And I began to have these dreams where I would be back in the house, and for some strange reason, I'm headed for the room, and I got a Bible in my hands, and I got a cross in my hands. And when the door opens, there's this wild looking man who's like staring at me. And he's got a butcher knife in his hand, and there's a woman who's, bloodied at his feet. And the next dream continued on with this same man. And I went to Mom with them, and I said, I don't know, like, you need to do something. You need to get a hold of her files, because what is it I'm looking at? These are not normal dreams. By that time, my mom had already had the files. She had them open. And what she couldn't believe was the fact that I actually dreamt what happened to this girl. Apparently, when the girl was about my age at the time, because I was 9 when this all went down, when she was my age, at the age of 9, her father butchered her mother in front of her, and he made her clean up the blood. And then he took himself by shotgun, and it was neighbors that heard the shot, and they came running and they found her. She was declared amongst the authorities, I guess, the government, like social services and that, to be so far damaged that she couldn't be what they thought saved. And my mother thought that she could save her, and maybe in some little way she probably did.
I suspect she helped her more than you would think.
I always thought that. I always said it. Everybody wanted to know my encounter. Everybody wanted to know, how did I get into the paranormal? Why am I so good at writing paranormal stories? How do I know so much about, the occult and how to reverse things and what evil is and stuff like this. And I tell them I was born into it. I had no choice in the matter. It wasn't like grandma came to haunt my house, or, my dog died and he came back. It wasn't like that. my mother, out of the kindness of her heart, took in a young girl that was troubled, and with that trouble came evil. And when I tell this story, I tell people this, when the story hits my memoir, which I am writing, it's not really my story, it's hers. And I think that's what she wanted.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. nightfrightshow.com.
Rosalind Hennigar is our guest tonight, folks, and I got to tell you, it's goosebump factor. Absolutely riveting story and a great guest from the Maritimes in Canada, by the way, folks. www.nightfrightshow.com, www.nightfrightshow.com. There you will find a list of her books. Just click on any book cover. That'll take you right to a place where you can order her books from the comfort of your own home. Also, she has an online magazine, and the link for that will be there. It's called The Paranormal View. And you also have your own podcast, do you not?
Well, I was starting that. I kind of ditched the idea just because we kind of got baited, I guess, a bit by bullies, and
I see.
Yeah, they were trying to rip down our links and try to, crash in on us. And I figured, no, I kind of do better with words than what I do with audio.
Okay,
so
fair
I figured,
enough.
My writing would be enough to kind of put it across that, what needs to be said or what needs to be taught. Like I said, I really do hope that when I bring out the restoring manual that a lot of people grab a hold of it because, it is something that is much needed.
There's a lot of chaos, a lot of very sick energy in the world today. Right away I think of ISIS, and I've never seen evil manifest like that, perhaps because I didn't live through the Holocaust or those times, but I've never seen evil on such a scale across the world in all my life. Do you feel the same way?
And it bothers me. It does, because, it's, I see a lot of people, like even on Facebook, with groups, you have the kicking down of the Wiccans, kick them in the teeth. They're devil worshippers. They're not. Okay. Then you got, for a while there, we had groups taking Ouija boards into haunted locations, and then we had them
so dangerous,
summoning up this entity Zoe, which is an actual demon and not a very nice one. That's what prompted me to kind of, because knowing a lot about the Ouija board, I had my first encounter when I was 16, and I can tell you right now, it was not nice. And I learned.
What happened, Rosalind?
My grandmother always shunned the board. She always told me, don't touch it. She never said why. Me being 16 and kind of, okay, let's put this to, like I said, everything happens for a reason, right? My boyfriend at the time, he bought me this Ouija board for my birthday. And of course, I decided, my birthday's October 8th, I decided to wait till Halloween to play it. Really bad, right? So here I am with the candles and the incense, and of course, my boyfriend at the time fails to tell me that he is into devil worshiping, which is not Satanism. Okay, devil worshiping is when they summon demons. It's the practice of summoning.
Thank you for that. I didn't know that. I just learned something from you. Thank you.
Yeah, well, there's a difference. There is not most, even our para-icons can't even tell you the difference. You know what I mean? But I can tell you the difference. Satanism is a religion that believes in the personification of evil through man, which is the study of the evil through man. Demon summoning is basically necromancy. It's when you raise up or summon up or conjure up demons. So apparently him and his buddy used my ability on the board to summon, which I come to realize now was Zoe. And it didn't tell me that's who it was, but that's...
Can you tell folks who Zoe is?
Zoe is the demon Pazuzu, is what he is. And it's a Sumerian demon. Now, according to what I've learned, now most demons can be banished. Apparently, this one cannot be banished. He can be knocked back, he can be knocked down, but he cannot be banished. So, I didn't know at the time. I got on the board with them. At first, I thought they were, jerking me around when it actually started to respond to my questions, until they lifted their fingertips above the planchette and it was still moving. And I was like, okay. It tried to tell me that it was a friend of mine that died in a car accident. And for some strange reason, my feelings were just, no. Something deep down inside was telling me this wasn't right. So I asked it a question that only she would know, and it couldn't answer me. And when I began to ask it who it was, it got mad at me, and it took me around in a figure eight, and it held me to the planchette. The other two let go of the planchette, and here I was stuck to it. And I'm going around it. It won't let me pull down to the goodbye. It won't let me off the board. So I literally had to take everything, like every energy. I had to muster everything to pull it, because I was literally in a battle with this thing. And when I finally got it down to the goodbye, the planchette it shot right past me and down the hall. I was mad. I got up, I picked the board up, I threw it in the box, I threw it in the closet, and all I could say was, this is not a freaking toy. Okay?
What do you think when it attacked you it was after?
Energy, basically. It was looking to attach itself to me is what it was doing. And I would
Is that because, Rosalind, you'd be able to clarify this for us. Is that because they cannot manifest themselves physically without attaching themselves to a human being or another living it? Is that it?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Okay. They have to have the energy feed in order to manifest. What I didn't realize is that the longer it held me to the board, the longer it was getting fed the energy to like make its presence kind of known, so to speak. And I didn't realize this until like I threw the board in the closet, and we were sitting there. I couldn't comprehend what just happened. And out of the corner of my eye, we lived in a bungalow, so our bedroom was off from the kitchen, and we had a flag that was hanging down over for a door. The flag literally went up about probably no more than 4 feet high, as if something 4 feet had like went into the room. And I wasn't the only one that saw it. My boyfriend's buddy had saw it, and we both jumped up and kind of ran to and I told him, there's no wind, there's nothing. There's like, what the hell just came in this house? I had to go back to my grandmother before things got worse. Nightmares, I was plagued by them. I knew something was in the house. I went to my grandmother. I told her what I did. She wasn't at all shocked. She actually sent a friend of the family's in that was pagan, who knew how to break the board and cleanse the energy. And I was taught from there on how to break the board.
Can you share that with our listeners?
How to break the board?
Yeah.
There are many different methods to breaking. One thing that you don't do is what they show you in movies too. Do not burn the board.
How come? Because right away I would have thought that would be the way to do it.
Because the energy will come out and come right back at you, full force. Okay. It releases it. The best way to get rid of the board is to bury it. Burying it grounds it. It can't do anything if you bury it.
Is it necessary to bury it near a church or holy ground or anything along that nature?
Deep into the woods. Take it deep into the woods so that nobody stumbles upon it or an animal kind of digs it up. When you do it, you got to, now there's more methods because when a Ouija board is played with, it's not a toy, it's a tool. It opens portals. So when you break the Ouija board, you actually got to close the portal, or you're kind of defeating yourself in one little way, because even though you get rid of the board, the portal's still open. There's still stuff coming out of it. So there's more to it, method to it. That's all in the universal manual. I explain that of how to close the portal while you're breaking the board. But when you break the board, you got to break it in 3 pieces. Like you got to like break it in half. So you have 2 pieces. The planchette becomes another piece. The planche with the glass in the middle, poke the glass out and shatter it in a bag full of salt. Put it into a bag full of salt and shatter it. Bury all those pieces separately. Do not allow them to touch. Even when you're removing it out of a client's house or your own house, do not have different people carry out the pieces or carry it out separately one by one. Do not put them together.
So you should bury each one in a separate place then.
Yep. Even if you took one out in the woods somewheres and buried it, and then took somewhere like way down further at another area and buried it down there or another, as long as it's away from each other, you're good.
Is there any danger in throwing it in a moving river or something along that? Maybe in the sea?
I wouldn't throw it in water. I wouldn't.
Okay.
Just because, like, they say that water flushes it and cleanses it, but still, I would bury it. Burying it, I was taught that burying it was the best, because what it does is it grounds the energy. Because basically, if you think about it, anything that's negative comes up out of the abyss, which comes up out of the ground. So when you put it back into the ground, you're putting it back where it belongs. When I bury them, I always throw salt on top and in it when I'm doing it, just to make sure that the consecration, it's sealed, like it's not going anywhere. So.
Okay, because many people write into me all the time and ask me what to do about Ouija boards, and I'm always, be prudent, be prudent. You might be opening up more than you're bargaining for. I know it sounds like a lot of fun, especially young teenagers when they're having a sleepover, right? Right away, you're going to gravitate towards something like a Ouija board or conjuring something up. Sometimes you have to be a little bit prudent and not, you might get what you ask for. When you're doing research, and I want to come to your terrific book that's called The Slender Man Phenomenon, Unsolved Paranormal Mystery. What is that, and how did you start your research on that incredible book?
I had come across the documentary about the young girl who stabbed her best friend. It was her and another girl that stabbed their best friend in the name of Slender Man. The story kind of struck me. The media kind of, they blame it on schizophrenia. The young girl had issues. But, it's kind of like, well, you have that feeling there's just something more to it than what the actual story is. So me and my UK he's he's the founder of my UK Paranormal View. He's my researcher. We jumped aboard it. I had him look into, some of the links of Slender Man. What is it? And I watched a documentary while he was looking into it text-wise. I was watching documentaries on it. And I came across this documentary that kind of went kind of alien, where it showed this site that is called the Special Protection Containment Site for Alien Matter, which is objects in that have like an alien kind of like a matter to them. And here we go back to energy. Slender Man is supposedly he was called Bundle of Stories. Apparently, he's alien matter that is birthed by creativity. So, the Slender Man video games, drawings of him, anything like that will birth him into existence. And it goes kind of like it's Tupla that kind of goes through the minds and pretty much kind of abducts them, I guess, in a way. Like, he doesn't take everybody, but he's got. They said he mainly feeds on children, maybe because they're the weakest. But if he chooses an adult host, it's usually one that has like a slew of issues. So they could have like a mental kind of disorder, or they're on the verge of a mental breakdown, or they're drug addicted or suicidal. I'd say it's kind of almost in a way of, I kind of wondered if most of the demonic possessions was actually Slender Man. And it's more alien than it is anything else. So he's been around for a very long time. I guess apparently he's more than just a legend. Um, I guarded against, I guess apparently there was a summoning of him, and I guarded against this. I told people, do not do this. Do not do this. Because what you're doing is you're offering yourself to him. If he truly wanted, I mean, he could take you at any time. He would find that weakness to get into. Because he causes paranoia, is what he does. He'll break you down in a sense of, he'll feed on that paranoia. He'll make your worst nightmares come true. He's just nasty, just outright nasty. So apparently he does exist.
Should parents allow their kids to go to the website, in your perspective?
No, I don't think that. I don't think whoever put the video game out should have never done it to begin with, because unless they did not know, because to some, that's just it. It's instead of looking into it and saying, okay, is this safe for me to do? They're ignorant about it. Oh yeah, that's just a legend. It's not going to hurt nothing until something happens. Apparently, this stabbing was not the first to happen. It was the second to happen. So hopefully,
and once again, evil manifests in the world like never before. I've never heard cases like this where children are killing their friends, and being and actually believing that they're being told to do these types of things. And right away, as you say, one can think of mental illness, but let's examine all that's surrounding what's going on here for real. And I think that's a healthy view.
Well, I mean, for what struck me about it was the fact that, this was her best friend. This was her friend from kindergarten.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. So if she was displaying this mental illness, she's obviously had it since she was born, Why didn't she kill her friend like back in kindergarten, or why didn't she kill her? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Obviously she would have shown something that would have, showed her illness, but she didn't. According to the victim's parents, this girl she's been in their house many a time. She's never come off as being like dangerous or evil, or never done anything to hurt anyone. And then all of a sudden, boom, she, invites her best friend over for a slumber party and planning on killing her.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I can't wrap my head around it. What, in your opinion, what would be the best way to proceed with these two young girls that have murdered this other girl? Are they savable, for example?
I would say that the accomplice in it is. She pretty much only went along with what was, I think maybe in a way she kind of feared that if she did not do as she was told, the knife could be turned on her. But as far as the other one goes, I really don't think so. Apparently the media slipped it. Thank God for Dr. Phil and Nancy Grace, who have big mouths. You know what I mean? Apparently the father was demon worshiping. Like he was summoning, and he was teaching his kid to do it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's why. And they slipped this. It not very often does media come out and slip stuff like this, but they did slip it. So, she's been taught. Yeah. A lot of people that, like, I've watched stories on young girls that grew up in I'll call it satanic, but that doesn't mean that it means Satanism. It just means that, like, satanic cults that, like, sacrifice babies or sacrifice, like young girls or people or whatever, mainly are demon worshippers is what they are, demon summoners. The Wiccan community calls them warlocks because they break the creed. So they're known as warlocks, or they're known as conjurers is another name for them, or dark practitioners. But I've watched a lot of documentaries of young girls that grew up in, with families that were in that sort of thing, and they would, extensive abuse to getting the girls pregnant so that they could sacrifice the babies, and these girls are successful at coming out of it, where they start to come to grips with, this isn't right. They get away from the abuse. They start to pick up their lives. But once the killing has been made, it's noted. Now, I I'm right big on criminology. Should have been a criminologist, I guess, instead of a paranormal investigator. But um, I, according to criminology, once a killer has had a taste of blood, pretty much the same as a werewolf or a vampire, it's there's no going back. I mean, you could fix her and say you fixed this girl, you know what I mean? Give her all the extensive treatment and put her back out in the world, but she's going to kill again. So, and that's the chances I think they don't want to take. Now, they never said as to whether she was being tried as an adult or not, but, I feel she needs to be tried as an adult. I feel that she's probably better off away from society than in it.
Is there a chance that she could become a psychic vampire as well? And, I think of Carla Homolka, who's walking the streets right now, of course, and a serial killer, folks, here in Canada. And she had made a deal with the prosecutors and was able to get out. And as it turns out, she had done more damage than we were led to believe. And anyway, she's walking the street. She's a serial killer.
Yeah, she killed her own sister.
Yes, she did. Yeah, just absolutely barbaric. Absolutely barbaric. In a case like that, and in a case like you've just described, is there any sense, are they aware of what they're doing and that it's pure evil and they just can't help themselves?
I believe in that case, Carla Mahoka's case, definitely, for sure. I mean, her and her husband had planned it. You know what I mean?
Bernardo, yeah.
Yeah, like it was planned. It ain't like, it happened and they were unaware of it. No, they had it all planned, The same with this girl. Apparently, according to the media on it, she had planned to kill her best friend 3 times. Like, there was 3 different scenarios. One was pretty gruesome, where she just wanted to slice her throat right there in the house. But she was afraid that if she did it, well, then that's too easy, like they can't get rid of the evidence. I mean, it's right there. So the next time was at a park where she was going to take her into like one of those bathrooms, but she couldn't find a drain for the blood to go down in. So she skipped that idea and took her in the woods. Planned.
Premeditated completely.
Yeah.
That's first degree murder.
And to me, if you plan it, then you're aware of it. And if you're aware of it, as to whether they see it as evil or not, apparently they must not. Because if they saw it as evil, why would they do it? To them, I guess it's for whatever reason.
Rosalind, with all that's going on today, what scares you the most?
People. I tell people this all the time, okay? I would rather spend my time in a graveyard talking to a ghost, okay, than be out amongst society talking to people, because people is what scares me. Like, you even said it yourself, like evil manifests itself in many, many, I'm not trying to be a Satanist here, but maybe a little bit I am, because like I highly believe in the manifestation of evil being like personification of man. So, man is very capable of doing very evil things. I mean, humanity is cruel.
There's another saying too, that the more spiritual, the more holy you are, the more good you do, the more evil is attracted to you. In your opinion, is that true as well?
Yes, to be honest with you, when I had this big outburst of paranormal activity. My daughter kind of fell a bit into black magic dabbling, I guess. Her and a goth boyfriend were into the vampirism, and they were hauling up demonics. They opened a bit of a portal in my house, but I kind of caught on to it. Me being, as far advanced in my abilities, and I kind of suspected that something was kind of, afoot, but it was all aimed at me. And that's what I couldn't understand. Like, they did it. Why isn't it aimed at them? And they tell me they didn't particularly aim it at anyone. They used it for gain, because, that promises, you'll get money, or you'll get protection, or you'll get whatever, And I'm thinking, well, why is it bothering me then? Mm-hmm. I went to a Catholic church because, well, down to get holy water because I really truly, like, as much as I knew about the paranormal, this baffled me. You know what I mean? I just couldn't understand this. So I went in to get holy water, and the caretaker, he spoke to me. He asked me straight out. He said, usually I don't ask. He said, but then again, we don't have many people come in asking for holy water either. Why do you need the holy water? So I told him, you're going to think I'm crazy. And he's like, no, not really. Go ahead. So I told him. And he said, I told him, I said, the one question I cannot for the life of me answer is why me? Okay, of all the people in the world that the devil has to pick on, why me? Like, I didn't summon him. I didn't bring him forth, Like, what reasons did he have to go after me? That's when this guy had said to me, and he was in for the ministries of, the Catholic teachings. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, have you ever heard of the Pillar of God? And I was like, no, I'm not Catholic. I don't know. You know what I mean? Fill me in, like anything at this point, right? He goes, well, you must have heard of purgatory. Like, you all die, you're going to this. Yeah, okay, I've heard of that. He goes, you're not. That's the thing. You're going straight up to heaven. I'm like, well, lucky me. And he goes, well, that's the thing. He said, the devil has everybody else in his back pocket but the pillars of God. And he will do anything he can to knock the pillars down because the pillars is what keeps all the rest of them from falling into his grips.
So the devil was targeting you through your daughter.
Yep.
Interesting.
And that's where I went into kind of, I pulled a team together. I did. Mm-hmm. Like-minded people, that I even had a skeptic come aboard my team to prove that, what I was experiencing wasn't just me. Like I told him, if you can prove it's me, I'd be more than happy to take that excuse. But what he saw and what we went through, no, he became a believer after that. Then his research began. He said, I'm no demonologist. He says, but hey, we're going to go into this. We're going to find out like how we can slow this down, what we can do to ease or back this off, because it was getting pretty bad. Doorknobs were moving on their own when they were locked. Like the doorknob was literally turning and it was locked. And I was like, what the, and there was footsteps and there was voices and people were pushed. I had one of my members push down my stairs. Like I felt really bad. You know what I mean? So, and then there was like really god awful like scratching sounds and bangings and like nightmares and it was just terrible. It was.
Is everything okay now? We've only got a few seconds left. That's why.
I grabbed my group together and we made the universal. We started to research hard into banishing and cleansings and restoring the balance.
There's the music. So everything's okay?
Yep.
Fantastic. Rosalind Hennigar has been our guest tonight, folks. www.nightfrightshow.com. Thank you, Rosalind.
Thank you, Brett. Have a good one.
You too. Take care. I'm Brent Holland from Night Fright. See you all next time.
Listening to Night Fright and your host, Brent Holland. The time is now. Your voice in the dark for paranormal and conspiracy.
The JFK Assassination, the definitive book by Brent Holland. From inside the Oval Office to Daily Plaza, first-person witness accounts. Order yours right now. NightFrightShow.com.